Here.
Steibner,
Here.
McLean, Burks, Janet.
Here.
All right, having a quorum, moving to item 5, the citizens' comments. Anyone here would like to speak during citizens' comments at this time? All right, being none, we'll move to consent agenda, items 6 through 8. Council had a chance to look through that or want to pull anything out? Make motion.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from May 3rd, 2022 in a regular city council meeting and a special meeting on May 10th, 22, the workshop meeting.
You want to do consent agenda 6 through 8?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll second. Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
Too kind.
All right, we have a motion to approve consent agenda items 6 through 8. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to regular agenda, public hearing. Conduct a public hearing and consider approval of the request of Joel and Deidre Martinez for a variance to section 5.1B2A of the subdivision ordinance that requires sanitary sewer lines be immediately installed and connected to a public sewer line at the expense of the subdivider of the property, if the lot is within 500 feet of a public sewer line, with subject site being 1.5 acres known as a tract in the CO Campbell survey addressed at 216 Hahn Drive. Public hearing opens at 6:04 with presentation from Mr. French.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Justin French, Director of Development and Planning. The civic site is located within 500 feet of the city's sanitary sewer main. Our understanding is that it is feasible to extend the city's sanitary sewer to the civic site so that it is connected to the city's sanitary sewer collection system. The site is approximately 125, 150 feet away from my understanding, and the request is for a variance to that 500-foot threshold to allow this civic site to not have to connect to the city's sanitary sewer system in order to be developed, but instead be allowed an on-site sewage facility for the civic site. That on-site sewage facility type has not been identified, but I do know from previous history there was a suitability study done for the site where the soils are not suitable for the standard drain field system. So it would have to be either a low pressure dose system or a drip system that would be conducive to the soils there, or the applicant will be needing to come back for another variance to allow a septic system with a surface irrigation method of disposal on less than 2 acres, since this is only a 1.45 acre site. And I'll be available for any questions at the time. Is that from the report?
What came up P&Z?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the variance request.
Do we know what the other homes are in that area? Are they on the city sewer system?
There are homes adjacent to the civic site that are on septic systems. I don't know the type of on-site sewage facility that they have. And the nearest home would be at the corner of Dove and Hahn, which is 425 feet from the civic site.
Do we have any previous requests down Hahn that we made connect to sewer?
This actual subject site came before the council previously. It was a different ownership then, and the ownership wasn't present, but they were they? I believe their surveyor was present. They didn't have the same information that the current owner is providing the council. But the result of that request was a denial of the variance request.
3 or 4 years ago, if I recall.
Correct.
Do we have anyone in the audience that like to speak on this? Are you the owner or applicant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. State your name and address for us.
My name is Joe Martinez. My address is 2105 Therese Drive, Waco, Texas. And thank you for allowing me to speak. Just a couple corrections. I know that in the agenda, it lists my wife's name as Deidre. That's incorrect. It's Deborah, D-E-B-R. And then also, it was hard for me to hear back there, but I think Mr. French referenced that our lot was 125 feet from the existing sewer. If I heard that correctly, that is in 425, yeah, so I wasn't sure if I heard that. Anyway, so my request is pretty self-explanatory. The amount of the cost to bring a sewer line to a lot is quite extensive. I think we had 2 different quotes. And it's basically cost prohibitive for us to build a house, which is why we purchased the lot. So that's why we're here for the request for the variance, and based on the cost that it's going to take for one homeowner to bear for the sewer system that, in essence, will not be ours. It will belong to the city, and then again, we will be charged to use that system that we paid for to be installed. So, anyway, I'm here for questions if you have any questions for me.
We may come back to you here in just a moment, unless council has any questions for Mr. Martinez at this time. Okay. Anyone else in the public like to speak on this item? All right, we'll close the public hearing at 6:09. If I recall, this was Mr. Steiner, you probably remember this was something that was discussed in previous management, probably 8 to 10 years ago.
Right.
My personal thought is, we denied it the first time, but now we look at, and time has not been very good on costs. And when you look at what a sewer line costs to run to a single property, he's got 2 bids in here now.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem very feasible. And it looks like, and Mr. French can answer this, looks like there's more lots up and down Han that are undeveloped. Down below those.
Yeah,
The
if they're
subject
not
site?
undeveloped, they're underdeveloped.
Well, I mean, they're not improved. There's not houses on them, right?
There definitely could be more houses on Han Drive.
Some of those are big, some of those are,
The
there's a
zoning would
house,
allow
but the
it.
adjoining property may be owned by the same property owner.
Yeah, but
So it's a lot of
effectively,
large
you could
property.
conceive that if there's a lot there, that somebody may, if we're allowing them to not connect to sewer, then, hey, my lot just became valuable. Which helps grow that area. I mean, I know we voted no on this previous request, but I'm more inclined to vote for a variance today and look at changing the ordinance to about half the distance, to 250 instead of 500. If we're gonna allow an ordinance, in my mind, then I think, allow a variance, and we probably look at what the distance is doing. And all this is being driven by cost. Just thought.
Yeah, I think, so the way I was looking at this was, I can't tell, I can't, if I was king for the day, I'd say, okay, which of those properties do and don't have access, or what's the last one that has access to the sewer line? Can you show me that?
It's this lot here.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
So that's the last one that connects there off of Dove Street?
Yes, this property owner here
Okay.
extended the sanitary sewer some distance along Dove in order to build their residence there.
Okay. And then off of Stegall, where's the sewer line on that? Or is there no sewer line on Stegall?
It's out of the picture, it's down, let's see, this is Stovall here, and it's gonna be, off the the screen.
Yeah. So,
It'll be closer to the Windmill Preserve addition.
so Mayor, my opinion is kind of like you. Times have changed. Cost, prohibiting people to do things. Either the city goes in and bears some of that cost to make it cost efficient and assume that it's going to grow one day and we recoup at some point, or we say for that to grow and gain some taxes off of that growth by allowing for variances for septic systems to be put in. I mean, those are the two options. Really. Now, how we go about doing that, whether it's a variance to the distance from tapping in, or if it's just a one-off.
I mean, you're looking at the bids. That's another discussion, I think, if we look at it from a cost standpoint of what costs are running today and thinking of reducing I would want to do a one-off based on cost. We get to do that on the ordinance. And that would be another, we could do that at a next meeting or two, is amend the ordinance if council agrees to that, but.
How many vacant lots are in that area?
How many vacant lots? A lot of the area is not platted, like the subject side is not a platted lot, so they'll have to go through the platting process.
Oh, okay.
And you're looking at 12th Street, I think, is the vertical road going up and down, so that's outside the city limits to the right.
Correct.
So it's not like you're gonna see a subdivision or growth in that area.
True.
This is gonna be individuals that own land. I just hate to see them not be able to do something with it.
Right. Well, the only thing is the septic system he'd get now would have to be one of those aerobic type ones, wouldn't it?
That would be a,
I mean, it just couldn't be where the old lateral system was.
could be.
It could be.
Yeah.
See, because with the water, when we get heavy rains and stuff and the water just sets and stuff, if he's
Yeah,
not,
but
he
that's
doesn't
all-
have a big lot size for something like
Yeah,
that.
but that's site specific, so they would come in and do a study to see what the soil could hold and what kind of system could be designed for each individual space.
Okay.
So that's the other question. What is the ordinance state on septic systems? The amount of land you have to have for a septic system?
Sure, so it's a minimum of 1 acre for a subsurface soil absorption system. It is a minimum of 2 acres for the surface irrigation system. And previously, 3 or so years ago, the property owner at that time did a suitability study, and that engineer determined that the soils were not suitable for the standard drain field system. And so that leaves the options of a low pressure dose system or a drip system as the only two subsurface soil absorption systems. And then that are allowed in Robinson with less than 2 acres, more than 1 acre. The subject side is 1.45 acres, so our ordinance would not allow today a surface irrigation system without the applicant coming back for a variance request for a surface irrigation system.
Thank you, Ms. French.
And our ordinance is more restrictive in regards to surface irrigation systems than the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and the Clinton County Public Health District. They can go as little as half an acre, just like a standard drain field system could go as little as half an acre. We have a little different standard here in Robinson in our ordinance.
Did this go before P&Z or before the zoning, variance board or adjustment?
The Planning and Zoning Commission, because it's not a regulation in our zoning ordinance, it's a regulation in our subdivision ordinance, which ZBA does not have
Great.
authority over.
So, and I'm just reading your staff recommendation comments about the intent of this ordinance. So, just trying to play a little devil's advocate that we cover both sides of this. What's the intent, and Bert, you might be best answering it. What's the intent of an ordinance like this, and why the distance that's in the ordinance, and why it should?
Well, typically it's for growth management, so that the larger rural areas far out from the city center, where you don't have the public infrastructure to support new development, don't grow before properties closer to the city center, where there's a shorter expansion of the municipal infrastructure. So you have smart growth principles that have the city infrastructure growing out from the center out, or from wherever the public infrastructure is out, is all in theory. This site is somewhat unique in that there's already public infrastructure out there for roadway, for water, to some degree, but sanitary sewer is not there. There is franchise utilities, electrical and such out there, and so it's not necessarily the outer fringe of the city that is looking to develop here.
My, again, playing a little bit of it devil's advocate, my concerns would be, we denied previous applicant the same, and we did make another resident just up the street extend theirs 300 feet? I can't remember.
I don't remember that. Actually, I'm not sure if I was even here on that.
It was 2015 or 16.
It was before me.
Yeah, it was 15 or 16, the house on the corner. So precedence has already been established to a degree, and I get that today's construction environment is not the same as it was.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, the one thing that's changed is the cost was probably about 15 to 20% of what it is today back then.
Mhm.
And it's ridiculous how much,
Right.
especially sewer has gone up.
And then it's related to the quotes provided, again, they're very far apart. In y'all's experience, that smaller one, was that comparable to what we're seeing in the market in construction right now? That's 15 grand in
I don't know if there's
engineering
a
fees off the bat.
To the market today.
Changes by tomorrow night?
Well, I think they said that they called 7 firms, 2 didn't respond, or some did not respond. Others did only work with commercial projects, so 2 responded. That's the hard part, is getting anybody on. And when it's small like that, they can get the bids, and this is an engineer's opinion of cost, and you gotta get a contractor in there to do the work. Good luck today.
I have been turned down several times in the last couple of years. Okay. That kind of satisfies my question for now.
Mr. Holland?
No questions.
I would make a motion to approve a variance to section 5.1
I second.
B2A.
My apologies for
Okay.
interrupting.
You said you second that?
Yes.
Yes.
Jim?
Any further discussion? I would just make note that we may want to revisit this if we're going to make a variance to this. Do we look at changing
Changing the ordinance to-
or keep it and create variances as they come along? But
I'll,
We can put that on for discussion.
let's do it as
Because I think-
discussion. 'Cause-
I think discussing it first, because various cities do different things,
Mhm.
so.
Okay. All right, well, we do have a motion to approve this variance. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 10 is me. I gotta get out of here. Mr. Stivers?
Okay, so moving to agenda item number 10, this is a public hearing as well. This is to conduct a public hearing and consider approval of the request of Luke Snyder, with Jordan Septic and Rainwater Solutions on behalf of Eckerling Builders for a variance to section 5.1 B2B of the subdivision ordinance that requires lots using surface irrigation as a means of effluent disposal be a minimum of 2 acres, with subject sites being 1.054 and 1.184 acres, known as lots 2R and 4, block 1 of the Buckwood addition, addressed at 1443 and 1451 Roy Drive. Mr. French?
So this is another variance request to the subdivision ordinance. It's for 2 different lots in the Buckwood addition. One of the lots were platted over 5 years ago before I was here, and to my knowledge did not have a on-site sewage facility plan when that plat was recorded. And then the other had an on-site sewage facility planned, and it was approved and certified by the environmental health manager with the Waco-McMillan County Public Health District, David Lidke. However, the request now is to deviate from that on-site sewage facility, which had a subsurface soil absorption system, and approve a surface irrigation system on property that's less than 2 acres, which is our minimum for the typical surface irrigation system. And is Luke Snyder here? Oh, great. Okay. And we have a representative for the applicant. Any questions for us? I'm sorry, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 7 in favor, 9 opposed.
Did you open the public hearing on this?
Yes, no. So we'll open the public hearing at 6:25. Sorry. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf or against this item?
He wants to speak on behalf, so.
I mean, not if, I don't necessarily need to speak if you don't need me to speak. If there's questions that the council has for me about the original set, or the original determination of the property versus what has happened to today and what those changes are, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think it might not hurt to give them an overview of that, since we did have the other type originally approved, and my understanding you had some concerns about that, so I think.
Well,
Can you, excuse me, can you state your name and
Yes,
address?
my name is Luke Snyder,
And your address?
1024 North 62nd, Waco, Texas.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So upon subdivision of these properties, or the effort to plat the properties, a suitability study had to be performed. And ultimately, what a suitability study does is, in this case, is determines whether or not the site is suitable for this type of system. But it takes in no account what is necessarily going to be there. At the time of a person breaking up a property, they don't typically understand or know necessarily what is going to be constructed on that site. So in the process of the suitability study, we discovered suitable soils for the low pressure dosing system. Upon actual development of the site, that area is disturbed and is unusable any longer. The remaining property, the remaining land on that site starts to take in some pretty heavy elevation change from the front to the back. Just across the rear property line, there is a surface water impoundment. And when you get down to where the property kind of flattens back out again, which is ideal subsurface distribution area, perform test excavations there, there's evidence of seasonal saturation in groundwater at about, I believe it was at about 27 inches. It's unsuitable at that point. We can't put raw wastewater into an area where we have shallow groundwaters. Matter of fact, we have a 2-foot separation distance for that. So it leaves the property, it leaves it undevelopable, developable from that standpoint. You just can't utilize the technology in those conditions, which forces it back to the need for a surface distribution.
So basically what he's wanting to do an irrigation system on this.
Well, he's wanting to install an aerobic system with the surface irrigation spray heads behind it, yes, sir.
And there is no city connection down there, is
No,
there?
sir. No, sir.
Yeah, I think they say the closest city sanitary sewer is almost 4,000 feet away.
Yeah.
So,
That's one right off of,
Hillside
Hillside.
and Roy, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I think what I'm gonna do now is close the public hearing at 6:28, and then we can start asking questions, concerns. So Steve, do you,
I'm good with it. I don't have any.
Mr. Hall,
Questions?
Mr. Rogers?
We're just changing from standard septic to an aerobic.
Yeah.
You ready to make a motion?
Okay.
Until I hit that button. No, I'm not ready. Motion to approve the request of Luke Snyder with Journeyman Septic and Rainwater Solutions on behalf of Ekman Building for variance to section 5.1B2B of the subdivision ordinance.
I'll second that.
Let's see, is that good?
At this two address addition at 1443 and 1451 Road Drive.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay, it's unanimous.
All right, item 11, consider possible action approving of a program project agreement with Woodmont Zenstone Robinson LLC regarding the development of 2.16 acres of land at the corner of Peploe Drive and State Highway 77. Mr. Lemon.
This is a 380 agreement we had previously discussed early when the company was looking at the site in executive session. We did negotiate an agreement with them. You may recall that there were some additional requirements to this site. Sanitary sewer wasn't readily available. It was going to have to be extended down Peploe and across the roadway. There were also some detention challenges, and TxDOT was going to require a shared drive approach with an extension of the turn lane or deceleration lane. So Woodmont anticipated that was going to push up their development costs, so they approached the city and asked if the city would consider incentives to defray $150,000 worth of their development costs. So you have before you the agreement in place to do that. It's basically split in two parts, one for each lot. The first lot, they're proposing to construct a McDonald's. It requires that the prospective investment will be between $2.5 to $3 million, and that so be between $2.5 to $3 million. They would employ between 25 and 35 part-time, full-time employees, and expected sales generations per year based on projected $3 million annual revenue. McDonald's must be completed within 2 years of the date of this agreement and be operating within 2 years and 6 months of the date of the agreement. In return, they receive an incentive up to $75,000, and that would be paid out an amount of up to 50% of the sales tax generated by that project, and there's a 10-year return period. I doubt it's going to take 10 years to pay that back. I think we've estimated that probably they'll be looking at about $35,000 a year in sales tax, so with 50% of that, they'll recoup that pretty quick. There's another 75,000 for the second lot. It gives them a little bit more time to develop that. There is a deadline on that. I was trying to find that. And lot 2 has to be developed with commercial business, meeting the above requirements in 5 years of the effective date. The agreement, if not, then no incentive will be provided for the development of lot 2. There's also prohibitions on lot 2. Any incentive would be withheld for development of a auto repair shop, body shop, auto sales, equipment sale, rentals and sales, storage, including mini warehouse, RV sales and repair, trailer sales, rentals or repairs, or building material sales. And then it's the same condition. They would receive up to 50% of the sales tax generated by that in a repayment period of up to 10 years. And this was drafted by our attorney. We negotiated a few points back and forth. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do recommend approval. They are about ready to get moving forward with this project. I think seeing some dirt moving at that location will help spur additional development in that part of the city. Now, is anyone from Woodmont here? I didn't know if they're in Fort Worth, so I don't know if they can make it or not.
Can't afford the gas.
Yeah, they probably want to up the incentive to recoup the gas to drive here for the meeting. So.
We didn't include that in this agreement, so
No,
I understand.
we did. This agreement does also waive permitting fees and any connection, or we don't have impact fees, but any tap fees or anything of that nature.
Mr. Rogers?
I have no questions, but prepared for a motion.
Any
No.
questions?
No question.
Mr. Rogers?
Motion to approve the program project agreement with Woodmont Zenstone Robinson LLC regarding the development of 2.16 acres of land at the corner of Peplo Drive and State Highway 77.
I will second that.
Motion is to approve the agreement with Woodmont. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, consider possible action approving a memorandum of understanding with Double G Group LLC regarding drainage improvements in the Robinson Industrial Park. Again, Mr. Lemay.
So we have a developer who has purchased property in the Robinson Industrial Park. It was a platted lot, approximately how many acres?
95? Oh, I'm sorry, 8175.
A couple of acres.
Yeah.
To develop a spec warehouse, and he started in the process, and everything was reviewed, the plans were reviewed, and as we got looking, we started noticing there were some potential drainage issues, so we had a couple of meetings with Walker Partners involved, and trying to come up with ways to address the potential issues we were seeing, and eventually Judd Walker got involved and started taking a much bigger look. And so the problem we've run into with this project is it was any platted portion, which typically when a lot is platted, it means the infrastructure to support that lot is in place. But that particular property was developed in 2007-ish, 2008. And it adjoins an undeveloped, unplatted phase. And when the drainage was installed, if the drainage was installed, it was put on the unplatted property that at that time was owned by the developer. The city did not require any easements. We've not been able to find any actual approved engineering construction plans saying this is the drainage system. We've found multiple draft or preliminary studies related to preliminary plats. It looks like, looking at aerial photos, there was some drainage installed, but it is now overgrown. It's on private property. No one has the right to just go on there and make improvements or anything. So we're going to have to sit down and take a look at this particular area and figure out what's got to be done to address this moving forward. We got a couple things going in our favor. We have somebody has bought the rest of the park with the intent to develop it. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to hold this developer up while we're doing that. So Jay Walker had discussions with them about, I think the simplest thing to do would be to do some off-site detention, but unfortunately the location of the off-site detention is on unplatted property that is there. They've already bid the project, they've already started moving dirt, so we basically agreed to let them continue. They entered in the memorandum of understanding saying they would be willing to contribute towards whatever drainage improvements we have to make, the cost of building the detention pond if that had to be done. And then we're gonna work with Walker Partners to move forward and figure out exactly what we need to do to address this, but we don't want to derail a project that's already started and cost the developer potential.
Okay,
sale
so a
on
little
the
bit more
property.
clarity I think I need, because if I need it, I'm pretty sure these others need it. Can you show where the property is, unplatted, platted, and what are you asking for in this understanding to help the developer, to not hold them up?
Well, so this is, let's see, which one is the laser?
The middle colorful
The
button.
colorful button, okay. So this is the property, so this is platted. Across the street platted?
No,
Okay, so this is platted, the street is constructed to here. All of this is platted. I think this one platted too, maybe? Didn't they plat two there?
Sun Valley
So this is Sun Valley Boulevard,
Yeah,
this
give me the
is
landmark.
Robinson Industrial Park,
Uh-huh.
this is FedEx, this is Volvo Trucks, and this
J. Fly.
is the
Joe Klein.
JW Fly Company right here. So the
Okay, so-
road, this is Western Star Boulevard, it's built to here. So in the preliminary plans we had, what it looked like was the drainage was supposed to come down here, there was drainage back here, there was some drainage area here, which I think that didn't get accounted for from talking to Mr. Walker, but the plan was the drainage was going to come across the roadway here, down here, over to here, down to here, and then into this detention pond right here.
Okay, so down to the right, this road continues around and
This
loops
road
in, right?
continues.
Okay.
So we've
Well,
gone back, and
doesn't
there's
today.
no plans for anything down here. And so originally it looks like the ditch that was originally, or natural flow of the water kind of went up here. But we found aerial photos around 2008, 2009, where they actually diverted that here, cut new ditches across here, and also cut ditches this way, like it was their intent to take the water both directions. But over time, the developer came in, threw about a 36-inch culvert RCP under this road, which is separated and silted in now, so that they could drive over here and continue to fill all this down here. And it's all overgrown. If you go out there now, it's this high. So there may be a ditch here, but we're not exactly sure if there's a ditch there. We're not sure what the dimensions are because looking at when it was constructed in 2008-ish in the aerial photos, it looks like the top of the trench is about 35 feet. But again, you can't really tell now. The ditch from here to either here or here is on unplatted property. All that ditch is on property owned by other parties. There's been no maintenance on the ditch between here. There's trees and things growing in here. I sent you all some photos. We actually have erosion where the water line has been exposed here from the water flowing down this ditch. And then there's not anything in any of the plans we have to verify this detention. This is actually retention, that this retention pond is adequate for all this development.
That's
But
the
yeah,
truck
we have
stop
a-
in the upper left corner, right?
Do it now?
Truck stop in the upper left corner?
Yeah.
It's the back
Pilot's
side of the
up here.
pile.
That's the pilot.
That road does connect around.
It's not an approved
It's not, there's no plat.
street. There's no dedicated right of way
There's no
either.
dedicated right of way beyond.
There's a dirt road back there for sure.
Yeah, there's a dirt road, but none of this was never platted.
Am I confused? Where's the gymnastics place and
It's
what's
up
up
here.
It's north, yeah.
Okay, this is south of that.
Yeah, the road goes to here and it dead ends right there. And then, like I said,
That
there's,
road will turn and get in and go over to the other road.
It's right next to Sahai Freight.
Power Star is further north.
Power Star's up here.
Okay, Power Star Drive is what I'm thinking.
Western Star Drive
Okay,
Western Star.
does not go all the way across.
gotcha. This was Eddie's old place here, right?
Yes, this was
Okay,
all.
where's the
Mr.
problem
Gumble.
with the bridge that we were running into? Where's that at? South of that?
For the.
Getting into the subdivision?
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
that's
it's
way
way
over
over
here.
here.
That's way over here. Yeah. Our concern is this is a platted lot. Typically, when a lot's platted, you can develop it. Infrastructure should be in place to allow it to develop. It's not, and we need to figure out how we're gonna fix that. But what we don't wanna do is we don't wanna hold up a developer who already is mobilized and has people working because we discovered a problem after the fact.
So those subject sites not platted?
No, it's platted, but the infrastructure that's supposed to be there for it to be platted is not.
Is the
Possibly.
infrastructure there?
That's the concern. It may not be. We don't know. We're gonna have to study that and make a determination. If it isn't, then what does it have to do to fix it?
I mean, a platted lot could not have infrastructure to it. We just looked at it on Han. Right?
So, well,
The property on Han is not a platted lot. But it has infrastructure like water and roadway. It may not be right away.
I mean, the whole purpose of platting
We
a
don't
lot
want to
is,
plat without it today. Yeah.
right, the whole purpose of platting a lot is that establishes the infrastructure for that property. So typically, if you go into a industrial park and you purchase a platted lot, drainage and everything for that is all, it should already be in place. But for whatever reason, Mr. Gummel did things that, and it all predates me, so I don't wanna judge anybody, but it just, there were some things that should have been done that weren't done.
This is
At the very
right
least,
beside-
there should have been drainage
Science.
easements.
Sahai Motor Freight.
It's right next to it.
Yeah, the motor freight place is right here.
Who was Jubilee?
Is there not
The lot where
another,
the detention you're showing is?
Here?
The other owners, do we have contact with them?
I believe it's the developer of the Days Inn Hotel, that's now Robinson Inn, that owns the property directly across from the subject site. He's come in and talked about wanting to develop a RV park and such, but I haven't talked to him in quite some time.
We've started having discussions with the guys that have purchased, they want to, over time, build the road all the way down. There are some additional detention ponds in the preliminary plats that will have to be constructed. Some of this drainage may be able to be taken this way. We just need some time to look at it. But,
So what do you need in the understanding? When we're able
well, the
to-
understanding is basically that we're going to look at what needs to be done and, I mean, it basically says that,
What I guess that is why, what do we need in council to make action on?
We
that
just
the
need
city
council
staff
to
wouldn't
approve.
make on their own.
well, this city doesn't have we don't have the authority to enter into a memorandum of understanding like this. It requires the city council. Basically, the Double G is committing that they will invest $32,195 either to build the detention pond, if that's what's necessary, or towards the cost of improvements that need to be made for us to fix this so that it works the way it should have been originally designed to work.
And how was that number calculated?
That was based on the size detention pond they would need and an estimated cost to build that detention pond. I believe you all, did you provide the quote for the cost for this?
You want me to explain?
Yeah.
Yeah, Keith,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, because I was not in the discussions between Jed Walker and all of them on this, so.
Keith Helpert, 109 Hoffmeyer, K4 Construction. So we're the contractor on the project and spent too many hours in Jed Walker's office talking about this. So I can shed a lot of light on it. So the problem is we started work on the project. The city, as Mr. Lemon said, kind of said, oh, wait, we've discovered an issue here with drainage. The problem is we can't go fix the issue because when this was all developed back in 2007, 2006 or whatever, the city didn't get drainage easements on Mr. Belmont's property to take this water. So right now, everything that's flowing through there is not through drainage easements. It's through ditches that were just created by Gummel, but y'all do not have a drainage easement. So we can't go and build a pond on, or clean out ditches or create that on other people's property. It's hard for us to go and say, hey, we need an easement. It's a lot easier for the city to go and say that you need an easement to make this right. So, and basically there were some wrongs done years back, and we're trying to correct those things. So we got with David Mark, who's the civil engineer for my client, and we got with Jed Walker, who is y'all's city engineer, sat in their office and went, okay, what our client needs to provide is enough dollars to retain the water that we are increasing water flow, pre-development versus post-development. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So they've already got those calculations on the plans of how much water volume is coming off of our property. So they put a theoretical detention pond, I think that was on one of the drawings.
There was the one before.
Yeah, the one before that you had up there. So as you can see, they put a theoretical detention pond that would retain the amount of water from our site. And then we use those numbers with recent historical data from H&D contractors on some other projects in Robinson, use the cubic yards of dirt, amount of sod, all of that. Does that make sense? To come up with the 32,195. That's how that number was arrived at, is using recent historical data within the past year. It's actually from the Water's Edge project that's going on right now.
So that's money that would have had to been invested regardless.
So my client needs to put that in there is the way that came about to help y'all solve a bigger problem. Because it's not just water from our site, it's water from Sahai Freight, it's water from everything up above it. It's actually some of Brent Newhouse's water from his land. There's about 9 acres there that comes through here. So there's a bigger problem. It's hard for us to solve it when we don't own any of the property, if that makes sense. And if there was drainage easements in place prior when this was developed, then we could have jumped in there and done it. We have no ability to get on neighboring property to fix that. No legal right to do that. So does that help at all? Or did I
Yes.
misexplain?
No,
that?
that's, and, you know, and again, this was kind of discovered after the fact as we were looking at this. We actually thought we'd kind of come up with a temporary fix, but then when the engineers looked at it more, it was like, no, that's not gonna work. Because I think like he's saying, the amount of water that was draining onto that.
Looks like we're having to buy some land.
Well, that's what we're having to look at. That's,
I mean, that guy ain't gonna give this like for
no one's gonna give it.
$30,000 just to drop in the bucket is
Well,
what this problem is.
And I think the key is, just my personal opinion, is I think the key is the group that bought the land, the bigger part to the south, the 95 acres, I think it's going to be a lot more easy to work with than the current owner of the smaller tract up there. And the water drains that way anyway. Plus, they're about to try to develop it. You as a city can go, okay,
Yeah, we can
there's
require
negotiation.
that.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes.
So then as they're developing, you're requiring things. I can't require things of neighbors when I'm on the property.
Right. But we
Is that-
can't
yeah.
get this done overnight, and they've already started building, and we don't want to derail their project.
We're going to build on.
And
We
the-
felt like the memorandum of understanding would commit them to their financial obligation, but give us the time.
And the improvements that they're putting on this site aren't gonna do anything to water flow to adversely affect something in the greatly near future.
That's why we've only allowed them to do a certain amount of work right now.
So Jed Walker, y'all's engineer, our engineer have been working together to try to.
Our engineer had to go to New Zealand for 10 days, so things are kind of hold to. I think he gets back today or
There's a lot of
tomorrow.
learning in
so-
New Zealand for this project.
So,
So this was actually Jed's idea of, hey, we need to calculate how to retain our water, put civil engineer numbers, because that's how they do their projected costs. I mean, that where they've got this much per cubic yard for moving dirt, this much per sod. And so that's what we gave a breakdown of, is this many cubic yards, this many square yards of sod, this much RCP. That's
And
what
you
it costs.
extrapolated numbers from Water's Edge from when?
This phase two.
How
was-
recent is that?
We did that 7-8 months ago. But you are talking about dirt and sod, so it's not like it's pipe or sewer line or anything like that. Yeah.
I would recommend the detention pond be more horizontal where it takes
Yeah.
up less street frontage.
well, there may not have to be a
So-
detention
oh,
pond.
okay.
They just figured that
Jed
that was
saying
just a
cleaning out
theoretical. The
Okay.
quickest way would be to throw a detention pond, but what we need to do is we need to evaluate. They need the time to evaluate what's there, and again, we have like 7 or 8 preliminary plans with different shaped detention ponds. I mean, we don't know if the detention pond that was retention pond that was ultimately constructed is adequate to handle the water that is diverted to it.
That's what Jed said part of the problem was, is their plans, there is a lot of versions of them from back in 2007, 2006, and it didn't look like they were completely followed back then.
Yeah.
And that pond down there in the bottom does not look like it looks on the plans. So Jed's really kind of looking into all this as a bigger issue of drainage.
And we do not have a sealed set of construction plans for this development.
Any other questions?
I don't have it.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Craig, and this might not be part of this, so this will be really quick. Just somebody help us keep from making these kind of decisions or whatever. You
We
know.
don't do things like this anymore.
Okay.
This was we got an industrial park and we have clients, and let's get them in.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I
Didn't
mean,
have oversight to catch.
So let's not do
issues.
that with the RIF property.
no. This, I mean, what should have been done here is before that plat was approved, there should have either been an easement across that other property submitted by separate instrument, temporary easement until it was ultimately constructed. But see, we've seen this more than once in developments here. We have a couple residential developments where it was a future phase and the developer just said, well, I'll handle it in the future phase, and then they never built the future phase. And then the property changes hands and the new owner comes in and there's no easements, and that's why you always get the easement. But yes, we don't do this, and our concern is it's a platted lot. I mean, typically, you're a developer. If you buy a platted lot, your assumption is that the infrastructure's in place for that lot. So, you know, we don't want to cause, this developer has a client, they have a deadline they're trying to move towards. We're letting them move forward with construction, and as soon as Jed gets back, we're gonna try to get on this and come up with some type of solution. I think the way, I sent him the aerials showing when they were constructing the trenches, and he said that gave him more information than he had when he was originally looking at it. Because it looks like they were gonna try to take the water both across and to the south. And I think that would, if these other guys that are gonna develop, you know, that's what's gonna have to happen, is they're gonna have to allow for that water to go both those directions. And they're pretty agreeable, so I think we can possibly, well, we can tell them now, you can grant us an easement and let us get in there and try to clean this up and fix it the way it is, or we're gonna make you guys do it when you develop the property. They probably would allow us to take care of it now. So we just need the time, and that's why the memorandum is here to give us that time to do that.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Double G Group.
I'll second.
Motion is to approve the memorandum of understanding. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Carry on, Keith.
Yes.
Thanks for coming. You did a better job explaining it than I did.
I spent way too many hours talking.
I know, it makes my head explode, so.
All right, item 13, consider possible action approving of an agreement with McLennan County for the county to participate in the City of Robinson City of Robinson Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 2. You can.
So this
Is that a motion,
uh,
Mr. Stabler?
I don't know if you need to talk about it, Craig.
Okay.
We've-
Well, I just wanted to tell you, they did agree to participate at 70%. At first, they had mentioned 50, but after considerable discussion among the commissioners, they did agree to participate at 70%.
We'll jump on that then.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the TERS 2.
Oh,
Second.
Who's second?
Bart.
Take it. All right, motion is to approve the agreement with McLennan County to participate in our TERS Number 2. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, consider impossible action on the appointment of Commissioner James Smith as the McLennan County representative of the TERS 2 Board. If so, I do make a motion to approve.
I'll second that
Commissioner
one.
Smith. And Mr. Janix on the second?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion to appoint Commissioner Smith as our representative to TERS 2 Board. Any further discussion? those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 15, consider impossible action approving of entering into an interlocal agreement with McLennan County Precinct 1 for the purpose of reclaiming and resurfacing Peavy Lane and East Moonlight Drive from Saffles Road to 12th Street for a total cost of $44,100. Mr. Lemay.
Well, Mr. Kaufman's been sitting here patiently.
Oh, let's pull David
I'm
up.
gonna defer to him, let him present this.
I'm sorry, I
Did all the work on this.
I guess I can. Just like we've done the last couple of years, managed to work with the street supervisor for McLennan County Precinct 1 in where they have the milling equipment and reclaim equipment, can actually do a reclaim with a chip seal cheaper than we can. So it's kind of a win-win. We usually kind of are in agreement with streets that benefit city residents and county residents as well. They're all roads that the county supervisor is very familiar with. We're currently doing some drainage improvements right now on Moonlight. The drainage crossing there just east of Saffles had failed. You may be familiar with that road, floods quite a bit. And we found that where that channel crosses private property, south of that crossing had a lot of obstruction with, there was a giant willow tree and a big mound of dirt. It's probably for about 75, 80 feet from Moonlight south. We were able to get an agreement with that property owner and go in there and clear that out. So with that, we're gonna replace the existing 36-inch culvert there with two 36s and make it a double barrel with HDPE pipe. We'll have that completed this week, and then the county can come in and start reclaiming Moonlight, and they'll come in and do Peavy shortly after that.
When the water tops the road there, it gets about 200 foot wide as it flows over, so we typically have to close it at both ends. But what's happened is it's running over the road, it's washing the shoulders out, so the road is, they went back and tried to rebuild the shoulders last year. But since then, some of it in the repair they put on it has washed back out again, so.
Was PV recently done? Didn't Vernon live on PV?
It's not been done since I came in.
I know Downsville did. By the way, Downsville Road is in excellent shape. Side note.
Yeah, PV's the one that recently mentioned me come in and say there was 48 potholes or something for one and the other, which they did go and repair those, but PV is due. I think it's, I mean, I've been here 6 years. It was not done when I came, so it's been 7 or 8 years if it was done, and that's about time to redo it.
So, since adding the Durapatcher to our arsenal, we've been able to eliminate a lot of repeat pothole streets, PV being one of them. So, yeah, being able to reclaim it and add hopefully 7 to 10 years to its life, you know, that'll eliminate one of the, I'm sure it's the top 3 streets we get calls on.
Yes.
Are you also gonna get them to chip seal that little bit up Saffles where you replace the culverts
Yeah.
across Saffles? And he didn't mention, but the culverts crossing Saffles along Moonlight failed also, and they've already replaced those. They're just waiting for the concrete work to be done. Which I think they were out there today doing the drive approach.
Right.
So, putting the forms up.
I'd like to make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the agreement with McLennan County Precinct 1 for the purpose of reclaiming and resurfacing P. Beaver Lane and East Moonlight Drive from Saffels Road to 12th Street for a total cost of $44,100.
Mr. Steiner is pointing out inside the agreement that the numbers are incorrect. The one's 44,000 and inside the agreement it's 44,1, and then inside the agreement shows 44,000 even.
Just for appendix A to match what's in the interlocal agreement.
I think that $100 was supposed to be.
Did they send the
taken up by
agreement
the-
over?
I made a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be cleaned up with the motion. Mr. Janice, do we have a second?
Do you want to?
Mr. Holland? Did you get that, Misty? Okay. All right, motion is to approve the interlocal agreement with McLennan County. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion, continuation of discussion on the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve amending ordinance 2018-006, the zoning ordinance for the city of Robinson, Texas. I was supposed to be out of town during that.
You tried.
We tried.
Hopefully you have good news for the council in that we have for you the draft ordinance as is prepared with the discussion items addressed from last meeting, which were to address front yard fencing and special exceptions. The special exceptions section was reduced down to the bare minimum that we have currently in today's ordinance. Today's ordinance has them spread out rather than located in one place for easy reference. So now in the proposed ordinance, they're under the special exception subsection of the ZBA authority. So it's a quicker reference to see what special exceptions could be submitted to the city. All the other special exceptions that were previously discussed and recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission to the council for approval, they have been taken out as we previously discussed. And then with the front yard fencing, we added the requirement that front yard fencing and only front yard fencing would require a permit from the city before fence construction. And that will hopefully catch a lot of the property owners wanting to add front yard fencing that would need to be in compliance with the front yard fencing regulations. In addition, we added the 90%, maximum 90% transparency requirement for front yard fencing, and the expanded height up to 5 feet for properties zoned agricultural district or zoned real estate and having 3 acres or more. And so they would be allowed by right to go up to 5 feet in height, but it would still require a fence permit. And so that should cut down on a lot of front yard fencing variance requests that the city receives and provide a standard for property owners with those larger acreages to abide by. And so with the council's permission, I'd like to go ahead and schedule this draft ordinance for a public hearing before City Council on July 5th. And then after that public hearing, the council can adopt this ordinance. Even at the public hearing and during the discussion of adoption of that ordinance, there still can be changes made by the City Council. It would just need to be either made with the motion of approval, or the public hearing would need to be continued to a later meeting, or action on the item would need to be tabled to another meeting so that we can either possibly further discuss or review the changes before actually taking action on the ordinance request.
This is just discussion. He needs just his direction, if we wanted to put it on.
I will add, at the last discussion we had on this, we talked about one of the things maybe seeing about having the attorney start attending the ZBA meetings. I did talk to him, and he or somebody from his office are gonna make an effort to be at the ZBA meetings going forward. We just have to notify them in advance when we're gonna have one, so they can schedule it, so. See if that might help with some of the ZBA decisions that we've been dealing with, that we're creating all these needs for these special exceptions, so.
So the finance guy need those to be able to get cost covered for their activities, those meetings.
So, we don't typically expend our whole legal budget, so we don't have, how many ZBA meetings we have a year?
They've been cut back quite a bit. I would say
4 or 5 maybe?
4 or
so
5.
4 or 5, so we're not talking
At the
about a
most.
lot of meetings. So
correct.
typically an hour maybe, so.
Depending on the request and the discussion.
Yeah, so we're not talking about a huge legal cost, but
So we can still stay within our budget.
yeah, I think so. I mean, the budget's kinda, as long as we don't have lawsuits and things involved, we've kept that budget running around 30,000 a year or so.
There's also hope in the drafted ordinance that it will be clearer
Don't need as many variances.
for people to know what they can and can't do and what ZBA will likely not approve, so that they won't even try to go to ZBA if they read the variance section and see that the variance request should not be self-created, should not be personal in nature. There should be a legitimate hardship that the applicants have with their property before they.
A hardship that they didn't create.
Correct.
No, I mean, I think it's a great idea to have legal representation.
Thanks for all your work on this.
Just making sure.
Yeah, no, I'm not anticipating a big, you know, I'm hoping after a few meetings, they maybe will catch up, but I think we definitely need that, because that's a big responsibility they have, and I don't think they always grasp how big that responsibility is. So we'll do that for a period of time and see how it goes. But we reduced legal fees considerably the last 6 years, so they're about a third of what they were.
I don't have an issue with moving forward with putting this on the July 5th agenda. I mean, this is going to be a continuous work in motion. I mean, times are going to change.
Yeah, I mean, zoning ordinance is something you have to look at every once in a while anyway, so. But I think, you know, when we adopted this in 2018,
Yes, sir.
we knew there were some things that were kind of, we just didn't have a real good handle on, but because of the circumstances we had with what had happened with the prior, we needed to get something.
Sure.
So we always adopted that with the understanding we were to come back in a few years and tweak all those things that we needed to tweak, so.
I'm just one of
Council good with that direction?
Yes, sir.
I'm great with that.
There we go.
Thank you, Mr. French.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. French has spent a whole lot of time on this.
Well, it's,
In fact, it caused him to grow hair, because you remember when he started, he didn't pull his hair out, he actually grew hair.
it is one of the most important pieces of legislation that we will vote
I
on.
might have to take out funds.
Mayor, on
Yes.
the item 15, 44,100 motion is correct. The math is correct.
Okay. All right, item 17. Anybody have anything to
Yes.
request?
I don't know if it would be for discussion, but from Cooksey Lane on Hillside all the way to Rosenthal Parkway, I'd like to have the street department possibly look at that, or we can talk about it at city council, whether we can get the water that's coming south to possibly go under Hillside to go west, because those properties on that east side.
Why don't I see if set up something with you and David, and we might be able to talk about that
Okay.
among us before we need to put it on an agenda.
Cooksey's got some issues for dang sure.
Well, and we have a plan for Cooksey, but it's not on tonight's agenda, but there's some work we're gonna do with the understanding of next fiscal year, we're gonna come back and chip seal, get the county to chip seal it. Cooksey and what,
All three, Cooksey,
Low
Pines,
Sag.
and Berry.
Barry.
We've got it kind of phased out, but there's a lot of clearing and drainage work that needs to be done up front.
There's some very dangerous drainage over there.
so we actually have a plan to try to get that done between now and next summer, and then have it all ready to chip seal all those next summer with the county, so it might be better if we just, three of us
I'm good.
talk, and then
So I'm
we'll
gonna
go
knock
from
that off, Steve, and you're gonna get with them.
Yes, sir.
Deal? Okay. Mr. Tyler? Mr. Holland? Mr. Rogers?
Good.
We will adjourn at 7:13.